Basra, southern Iraq. The Iraqi coastguard are hunting down the smugglers who are wrecking Iraq's economy. The coastguard have only speedboats and light automatic weapons, and they're up against criminal gangs and militias running operations on a massive scale, an entire parallel economy, importing and exporting everything from cars to cattle. The big prize for the smugglers is oil. It's spirited down the Shatt al Arab waterway between Iraq and Iran in barges like these. The commander of the Coast Guard knows his small force is battling an overwhelming problem. One Iraqi economist estimates that oil smuggling could be costing the country somewhere between $2.5 and $4 billion a year, as much as 10% or more of Iraq's national wealth.
The problem with controlling oil smuggling is that it stretches all the way back to the source, at the points where oil is distributed. There is a lack of security and monitoring in petrol stations and distribution companies. Because there is no monitoring, smugglers have come up with new ways of stealing petrol. They tap into the main pipeline and collect tanks full of oil. They're making use of the poor security to steal oil and deliver it to the ships.
One big scam is fishermen selling their subsidized rations of diesel to the smuggling gangs. Since the days of Saddam Hussein, petrol, diesel and kerosene for cooking and heating have all been heavily subsidized. The fishermen can make much more money by selling their fuel than by catching fish.
There are 900 fishing boats on the Shatt al Arab. Most of them are broken down, but they still get diesel rations. So even though the engines don't work, these people are getting fuel. Organised smugglers are collecting this diesel and selling it abroad, exploiting the difference in price. The smugglers load the oil into the barges in secret harbours and inlets hidden in the palm groves. Then they sneak out into the Gulf to international waters where the Coast Guard aren't allowed to follow them, and they sell the cargoes to waiting ships. All the fishermen our crew talked to swore, of course, that they were as honest as the day is long. But an oil ministry investigation found that most of Basra's fishing boats were selling their fuel to the smuggling gangs. So the authorities are trying an oil for fish scheme. For every ton of subsidized fuel oil the fishermen receive, they have to come home with the same weight in fish. It's a bright idea, but very tough to police. This fisherman told our crew the Coast Guard were accusing him of selling 11 tons of diesel rations. He said they never received subsidized fuel and just bought what they needed on the open market. Mu'taz Dakhil from the Coast Guard just doesn't believe him. "Where's your ration?" he demands. The fisherman protests, but Mu'taz insists. "You've had your ration and you've sold it, haven't you?" In the end, he orders the boat back into port. The Iraqi Coast Guard are proud of their efforts. They made this film for local television to show that despite the violence and chaos in Iraq, they are out there trying to uphold law and order. The film shows Coast Guard officers mustering for a night raid on a smuggler hideout in one of the rivers that flows into the Shatt al Arab. Officers proudly display some of the cargoes they've seized. Boatloads of cars being smuggled in to avoid import duties, and barges filled to the gunnels with crude oil. But faced with an enemy armed with weaponry like this, how much more is slipping past? The commander of the Coast Guard knows the odds he's facing. The smugglers use weapons that are far more powerful and sophisticated than those we have.
which limits how much we can chase them or stop them. They also bribe people to let them go.
The entire oil industry is wide open to abuse. The pipelines carrying crude oil run across the open desert. It's easy to see how smugglers can just drill a hole in a pipe and fill up. Insurgents are also sabotaging pipelines to force the government to move oil in tanker trucks like these outside Basra. Oil is much easier to hijack when it comes with its own wheels. The Iraqi government has a few units of tough-looking troops like these paratroops our crew found in Basra. And there's a special security force dedicated to protecting oil installations. But like everywhere in Iraq, the official security forces are outnumbered and outgunned by the criminal gangs and the militias.
We could control and stop oil smuggling if we had more manpower and more weapons. At the moment, we only have access to light weapons, and it makes our job much harder. We also need new cars. Ours are in terrible condition.
The result is economic collapse and daily misery for ordinary Iraqis. People are suffering desperate shortages of petrol, diesel and kerosene. They need armed guards to protect the pumps. Iraq has the world's second largest reserves of crude oil. Basra here is the headquarters of the oil industry in southern Iraq and home to one of the country's biggest oil refineries. But the people who live here have to queue for many hours, sometimes days, at petrol stations, or else pay 4 or 5 times the official price to buy fuel from black market stalls by the side of the road. In 2005, the government spent about $4 billion importing oil products to sell at giveaway prices. It had to import because war and sabotage have crippled most of Iraq's own refineries. The government has been steadily removing subsidies on oil products over the last 2 years. Petrol has shot up from 3 cents a litre in Saddam's day to 32 cents now. But there's still a lot of money to be made from smuggling, as the oil company official in charge of protecting oil installations admits.
Smuggling is done for quick profits. It works by exploiting a big difference between the real price of the product and the price local people can buy it for. Yes, it's about money. The profits they make by buying oil products from the state and selling them on are huge. But the operation is also used for political purposes.
Iraq ought to be one of the richest countries in the Middle East. In the 1970s, its oil money paid for healthcare, electricity and schools. But now, government has all but collapsed. Smuggling, corruption and violence are wrecking the economy. Large areas of Basra just look like a wasteland. The Coast Guard board and inspect every vessel they can, from fishing skiffs like this to rusting freighters. But it's frustrating work. The border between Iran and Iraq runs down the Shatt al Arab, and once out in the Gulf, smugglers can easily escape into Iran's territorial waters, where the Iraqi Coast Guard can't follow them.
The protection of the coast up to Fao is under our jurisdiction, but smugglers go out under cover of night and sail into Iranian waters, and we can't do anything about it. There will be a confrontation with the Iranians.
The Coast Guard plough on, trying to enforce the oil for fish scheme. The fishermen, of course, protest that it's unfair.
I've just come back from a fishing trip. God hasn't been generous with me this time, and I haven't brought back any fish. What can I do? Where will I get those tons from?
Officers like Mu'taz Dakhil know exactly what's really going on. They just don't have the resources to tackle it.
We need more boats, more regular patrols, and we need to coordinate with the Iranians. That's very important to control smuggling.
The reality is that as long as criminal gangs and militias are stronger than the government forces, the smugglers will continue to bleed Iraq dry.